Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Claymont City School Board Education regular meeting, December 12th, 2022, 5 p.m. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas as well. We'll get this underway. Roll call.
Mr. Cottrell?
Here.
Mrs. Grandison? Here. Mrs. Host? Here. Mr. Miles?
Here.
Mrs. Wolf?
Here. Time, 5 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll get into accommodations.
I have one accommodation that I would highlight would be been Gemma Dodds, who finished third at the state preliminary contest for NFFA. So a huge accomplishment. We actually had several students go down and participate, but Gemma came back with a win in third place. So I have that one to highlight. If anybody else has any others?
Guess not. Okay. Moving right along into administrative and board committee reports. We've got a special guest here, Mr. Will Weidlich from OSBA, speaking about strategic planning. Mr. Will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, this is, I didn't have this one before. So thank you.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity. You folks seem to be proud OSBA members. You've got the nameplates, you've got your membership sign up, you've got the school Celebrating School Boards month in January up. The brand new poster will be in the mail to you for January 2023. So look forward to seeing that. Again, my name is Will Weidlich. I work with the Ohio School Boards Association. I sat in your shoes several years ago for 2 terms as a board member down in Pickaway County. And have worked in education. I heard you mention the FFA. I'm a former ag teacher myself, and so could relate to that in part. Got a short presentation. Ask questions if you'd like during the presentation, and then we'll have time for questions at the end also, but it is also fairly short here. I can tell you've already done some strategic planning. You can see some of your signs. You see some more teacher-based strategic planning, if you want to call it that, on the wall also. So I may be talking to the choir a little bit, so apologize if you know a lot of this anyhow, but strategic planning is a good tool for your district to set goals moving forward. Districts that kind of have a direction seem to do much better overall than those that are just trying to figure out what they're doing and not have a particular direction. The OSBA philosophy in doing a strategic plan is that there's 2 of us that will work with you. Both of us are former board members also. And then we have the team of staff back at OSBA, communication consultants, survey consultants, the legal staff. Some of you may have used some of those. So I'm here representing the organization, but there's almost 40 of us behind me that'll be a part of this process. We think our process is pretty unique in that we have a board member's viewpoint to it. The facilitators, like I said, will be all former board members. And as a member of your organization, we're here to serve you. So we think that's pretty critical. We do a lot of customization to the process. And so what I'm going to talk about is how we typically do it. And so we'll meet with you folks and decide if this is the process you want. This is the process that I'm describing as typical, but there's no real typical school board. So keep that in mind. And finally, we think we have a cost-effective one, and it's some of your dues is supporting this process to start with, but we do charge a nominal fee for the extra for districts that don't take advantage of this service. And we charge those districts that do take advantage of it. So our process is that we have a lot of folks involved. We want to keep you an invite out to all those interested parties to be involved. I'll describe that in just a minute. We expect that there be a diversity of views at the event, so it's not just all one particular perspective. We facilitate a culture where there is lots of views, but we will have a consensus-making process in the end because we have to come to some conclusion. And we believe that the final plan will fit your mission and goals and be something that you'll be proud of to use going forward. I've even put a sample strategic plan at the 2-page brochure. I think it's on the left side behind the cover when it's there. Another district that we just finished recently to give you a sample of what that might be like. So we talk about what a good strategic plan might be. It reminds me of a story. My brother-in-law decided to hike the Appalachian Trail this year. And if any of you don't know, that's a long hike. He only did it for like 6 weeks, but that was all his plan was. But he spent months planning for that because you got to figure out where you're going to have food, where you're going to have shelter, where you're going to pick up supplies, etc. So this is the same kind of process. This is the same plan for your district. So it's going to guide you to do with the things that you have, given scarce resources like he had. He can only take with him what he could carry. So you only have so much resources to also. We use it to build upon your current successes. I am sure there's lots of things that you want to keep doing. And so a strategic plan doesn't automatically assume we're going to scrap what you're doing and start all over. You want to continue the successes that you're doing. And the last couple of things is we talked about it sets your future up because it kind of puts a roadmap together for you to be able to see where you're going and start identifying things. We just finished up with another district that did our work 3 years ago, and they had a great board meeting when they came back and talked about all the things that they accomplished that 3 years ago they had set in motion. And so that's kind of the fun part too, is when you get near the end, you say, check, 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 and they're starting a new strategic plan. And very, obviously, they're not having some of the same goals because they accomplished things and moved forward. In a more general sense, there's lots of people that are involved. And so we'll put together a core planning team, and I'll talk about that in a minute here. We'll help you gather data, not only from meetings, but from surveys, so that you'll have information to put together from a lot of sources. We'll help you identify whatever the critical issues or items are that's in your district and how you might attack them. And then we'll include a lot of community-wide discussions. We'll talk about the core team meetings, which have a lot of community people involved in that process. Speaking of that, the core team is what we use as a part of our process in that these are 4 planning sessions, generally 1 per month over 4 months, and they last about 3 hours each. This is folks that you'll put together in this team. 30 or 40 people is what we generally recommend, so we have a good cross-section of your community, and not everybody can attend, so generally 20 to 30 are attending, even though you have 30 to 40 on the list. There's are some samples of some groups that involved. Yes, even students. We had districts where the students have another story to tell as a part of the strategic planning process, and we will make sure we include them also. Our process includes a community survey. It's for those that couldn't participate in the core team. Again, we're probably only going to ask 30 or 40 folks to be a part of that, but those folks will be talking to other people, but they won't be talking to everybody. So another part of the process is we have a community survey that we use. We'll customize the questions depending on what it is we want to learn, what you want to learn in the planning process that maybe you wouldn't know just because you had the core planning team together. Examples are some folks subdivide the questions by audiences. I want to know what students, I want to hear about students in this topic, but I want to hear from parents on this topic. I want to hear from community members, non-parents on this topic. So we'll help you organize that and then present that back to the group after we get that information. So it's a small screen here, but there's a nice one in your handout. Talks about the four core team meetings and the design team meeting. A smaller group of folks, maybe up to 10, some board members, some administration, some others will put together a design team, and they'll help us put together who we're going to invite to the core team meetings, what the structure of the core team meetings might be, where they might take place, when they might take place. It's kind of the planning team of the whole process. We'll come out here and help you do that over a couple-hour meeting, help identify who might be on the core teams coming forward. And that would be a good step for you to think of people that might be involved in that too. Then we have 4 core team meetings, again, generally monthly, 3 hours at a time. We start with a shared vision, and you may have a lot of good information right up here on the board. Mission, vision, and core beliefs are generally part of the first set of meetings, trying to set the groundwork of where you really want to go. Our core team meeting is a lot of times about information gathering. We'll have the survey results at that time. Many times the administration or the treasurer's office will present information to the core team of details that might impact decision-making as we move forward. So we spend a lot of time on core team 2 meeting of getting information to the team. Then teams 3 and 4, or core team meetings 3 and 4, we start prioritizing, putting those into actions. I know you have some sitting behind you here, Mr. President, but those are the kind of things that we'd end up with after core team meeting number 4. Then we move into action teams, and I'm doing this kind of fast because, again, it looks like you already have been through some of this, so I apologize if I'm going too fast for that part. But at that point, we hand it off to you. We'll get you some good training and handouts and templates to do the action teams, but a lot of times the action teams are at building levels or department levels to get some of the projects done. And so that's a time when our handoff goes to the school and you do that part mostly on your own. We'll assist you, but mostly from a remote at that point. So to look at the structure, and this will give you a little bit of sense of some of the titles I've used. We talk about a design team. It's kind of the planning group, the overall group that sets the direction of things. The core team is the larger group of folks in the community and others that were involved. We talk about the action teams. Those will be after the core team finishes. You come up with 5 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals. You may put an action team together for each of those goals. The district administration and the board has other functions in that too, and I've kind of described those up here, but the idea behind it is that the board is doing like you do here. You have it up and you're monitoring the process through your staff as you move forward. You have a little more framework, and I put a proposed timeline in here if you wanted to do this. I would suggest that the design team, that planning team, meet in January. That's when we would put together, that team would put together the formal timeline, when we're going to gather data, when we're going to have the meetings, who might be on those committees moving forward, and start to put the process in place. Then I picked some dates here, the next 4 months, February through May, possibly having 1 core team meeting each month. And then with those core team meetings, doing like we talked about before. First one's kind of reviewing what you have. Second one's getting new data. The third and fourth one is taking goals and moving them into action plans. And then if that would be the case, you could possibly approve your plan at your June board meeting, given that time frame. This is, again, typical. Districts can go faster or slower. And with holidays and things, it sometimes speeds up, sometimes goes slower, but that design team will put together if they think this is a reasonable process for you. In the end, I just say that, our goal is to be your partner in this. Again, it's a board-driven process, but not a board action process. In other words, we would like you folks all involved, but we'd like for you folks to be involved just like everybody else in the community and let us facilitate for you so that you can be in the participating process. You can listen to the community folks. You can provide your input too. It's a lot more difficult if the board president or the superintendent leads the process and then they have a difficult time participating. We'd like to have us be the facilitators and then you folks can be full participants in the process. We're there for you all along the way. So in other words, consulting as far as if there's something different that you'd like to do a little bit. Some boards have had different types of processes, but again, as we talk, maybe we'll find out what that might be. In the end, you end up with some nice measurable goals that you're going to put into place for the next couple years. We'll throw in, for lack of a better term, an example of that brochure that you see in there so that you could use in your marketing materials when we get to the end, and it has your exact goals in there and your timeline moving forward. I want to keep you on your schedule, so I want to say thank you and open it up for questions. I did all the talking. So.
Well, I would say it's part of it is we talked at the last board meeting about strategic planning and knowing the roadmap where we want to go and being able to chart that. And I know a few of you echoed those sentiments. if this is the desire of the school board to do this, OSBA has sent us a contract to be able to move forward and start this process. Just with everything, they said that their fee goes up after the first of the year. So just letting you know that that is also tied with that. But I mean, when we sat down several years ago and went through and developed what we have now, and as talking with Will, he said sometimes, you know, it used to be a 3 to 5 year vision, and now sometimes it's a 1 to 3 year plan and revisiting every year. This would be a task, but with the OSBA leading this, I know that we can get through this one relatively easy.
That's a good description. Sometimes we go back to districts a year later and help them tweak it if they need to be. Many of them are using it as a part of their board meetings, you know, on display, on their place in front of them at staff meetings and things. So it becomes more a component of all everyday work.
I have one question.
Yes.
Okay, so the structure fee is 10, it's 10,000, right? And then, and that includes those first few, that's all that. Then the 200 an hour is for additional help that we would need during this.
Yes, I have not seen anybody need that, but because we provide as much service as we can in the time we have. So it's not just the time on site. It's via the consulting via phone in between meetings and everything. This would be if you're doing something that's outside the general scope of the work.
Okay.
The only other additional cost that's in there, but is in the statement is just our travel.
Travel time, yeah.
Yep. It's a flat fee.
Holly,
Holly?
Holly has
Okay.
a question.
I know we already have our district leadership team, so I was just wondering kind of, when you did this presentation, it seemed very familiar to what our district already does. So, I mean, other than it would involve board members, how does this differ from what we're already doing?
I'm not familiar with what you're doing, but let me describe it in a more general term.
Okay,
This would get to the point where we would hand it off to local action teams. The likelihood of the board being involved in the action teams is low. The board should be at the monitoring level and involved at the level of continuing hearing feedback. But once the plan's in place, it should be staff administration delivering the plan, putting the action steps together. So I don't know how that fits in.
I don't know, maybe Mr. Branch can help out. I don't know.
Does what we
How is this
want to
different?
do lend to how their direction goes?
As far as our district leadership team, our
Yeah.
focus has been on the curriculum and advancement of our curriculum for our students. So that falls in with one of our goals.
Right.
And then as far as action steps, as far as providing a safe school environment for staff and students, you know, that would be another one where we'd have action steps. Our district leadership team doesn't necessarily delve into those.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's more of the board, if I understand it right, the board would, with the team, the strategic team, would set those actions or those goals in place. And then whatever those ended up being, those would in essence be supported by the district leadership team, like academics and student
Right.
growth and development. So I think, Holly, overall, I think they'll kind of go hand in hand at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like whatever is defined by the committees of where our strategic plan needs to go or where we want to go, then obviously collaboration and cooperation within the district would happen to make that possible. Because obviously, as teachers, you guys have a different insight than I do as a board member or as a parent. So I think that's what's important about the committee of 30 to 40 people is that you get a wide array of people who have different ideas on what we can do to strengthen our district. All right.
Right, and when I was
Yeah.
talking with Will, you know, just, it could be from where we are as far as major concern may come out as far as, you know, one could be safety, one could be come out in facilities,
Mhm.
another one could be approving academics, and then it's, how do our action steps then meet those goals? What do we do to make sure that we're achieving that? And part of it could be done through the district leadership team, through the academic piece. Part of it is done as far as just the administrative team carrying out the action steps and checking with the board and saying, hey, we're at this action step by, I don't know if we put a date on it that, through the year, you want to be able to accomplish this piece of it. Maybe you want to upgrade to a faster internet. I don't know. That's a
Right, it
goal.
could be
That could be an
anything,
action step. And then to say, okay, we achieved that goal. But, those are things that might come out of that. And having community input is very important in the piece of this because they can see what drives us as far as their involvement.
I think I said last board meeting, I think it's a great idea. So
Well,
I think
I
we
just-
should do it.
I just want to chime in, just trying to get up to speed a little bit. I apologize for being absent last meeting. So from my understanding is this is going to give the voice that sometimes feels that they're not being heard a chance to, I guess, have that say. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's another way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think that should help strengthen the community to get us in a direction where we all want to go instead of always feeling like the board is taking maybe a direction where they're not being heard at times.
Communications is always a good part of it. That's correct.
So
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And then if we are interested in moving on to that, then at the end, under new business, we would have a motion and a second to go into agreement with the House School Board to be able to move forward.
Okay, we'll get into some
I'll let you do it.
principals. We do have some of the reports here. If there's any that would like to shaking their head, no, would like to add.
If not, I have two questions.
Okay.
One for Richard. The first grade Christmas program on December 19th, where is that and what time is it?
That would be in the elementary building. We're starting activities with parents at 11 o'clock. They'll go to lunch and then come back and the program will start at approximately 12:30.
Okay, thank you. And then, Kelly put hers on, but we're just Kelly. I have to work the concession stand, so I won't make it, but thank you for letting us know. I appreciate that. Okay, that's all I had, sorry.
That's all right. Michelle Sproul, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I sent my report.
Yeah.
So that I just update two things, just on the credential update, which we're really pushing for, towards the end of the year, that 98% of our students in the class of 2023 have earned at least one industrial credential. 26% of our seniors have earned a 12-point industrial credential to this point. And many of our seniors will finish that 12-point credential in the second semester. And we currently have 260 applications in cosmetology, which is a big one, is closed and have a wait list. So just lots of positives there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lloyd? CA?
I'll just be really quick. I just wanted to thank the calendar committee. Well, it's gonna be quick. I'll talk really loud.
The people that watch it
All right.
back online.
I just want to thank the calendar committee. We did come up with 2 calendars that we voted on. We did have a majority vote on calendar B, but in the past years, it's been really 50-50, which has kept kind of our staff a little bit divided when the vote was only 2 or 3 votes more that won, and it was basically a 70 to 30% this time. So we came up with a calendar in that committee that really appealed to a majority of the staff rather than half and half. So I'm glad that we got to see like a majority of people happy with that outcome. So that's all I want to
What
say.
did you say it was, B? B?
Yes.
B.
And that's the one that got modified for in the second 9 weeks, right?
Yes.
Want to get testing in before we,
Mhm.
that's great. Thanks, Molly.
Okay.
Steve,
Kim?
can I say this?
Yes, you sure can.
Oh,
Ms.
you
Ms.
go
Miles, sorry.
forward.
All right, just a couple things. I want to remind Lois and Cindy, we have a meeting for curriculum for social studies on Wednesday after school. Also wanted to thank the teachers and the admin today. All of the red and blue paperwork we did today was with instruction partners and the support of the ESC consultant, Marina Colombo. We're working on developing an instructional math vision. So pretty excited about the work today. And it was ironic that a lot of them had the same things on it. So it gave us a nice direct path to what we need to be doing differently. And the third thing I just wanted to do, and she's not going to be happy with me for it, but I want to recognize Beth Lynn today for her efforts in acquiring another safety grant. She just put something through in the LPDC last week for $50,000. I'm like, wait, I just read that she got $200,000. And so she had put $50,000 grant in for the credit, and we have not received all the information for her to put forth the grant LPDC request for the grant. But sometimes Beth does a lot of work behind the scenes, and I know she doesn't do it for recognition, but she continues to look for opportunities to save the district money and acquire outside funding sources to support the safety, the technology, the building grants that we do, or the building activities that we do. And I want her to know that I appreciate the work that you do, because without that additional funding, and I'm sure Mr. Wrench and Kim also do, because if it's things we need, we have to pay for it out of general budget. So without that, it wouldn't get done, or we'd have to pay for it ourselves. So I do appreciate you. So.
Beth, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No.
No? Okay. You're good. Kim, are you ready? Kim, are you ready?
Beth, you got to get up anyways. Can you? Me.
I did not download that from there.
Okay, just keeping with the same kind of financial report each month to make sure everybody's familiar with it. So general fund revenues fiscal year to date so far, this is using the new 5-year forecast numbers now. So projection is at 42%, so we're slightly under at 40.15%. With, state funding is always, well, that changes it a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Is our main contributor for our revenues. And in our expenses, the next slide. 42% projection, we're at 38.53%. With salaries and fringes at 78.66% for year to date. Supplies are running slightly higher at 47.72%. So that's just going to be an area that I watch the remaining of the school year. So total revenues fiscal year to date is almost at $9 million with expenses at $8.5 million. We did have a deficit in October spending of $451,000. But year to date, we're still in good of $468,000 with our true days cash of 126 days. Our ESSER review, we didn't have any expenditures for ESSER 2 this month or last month. We still have outstanding purchase orders of the almost 247,000, which takes the balance of our ESSER money. I split the roof over here at the intermediate school between the remaining funds of the ESSER 2 and part into ESSER 3. So ESSER 3 expenditures for the month of November was the $80,652 spent on math and ELA curriculum, some roof work and Chromebooks. We have outstanding purchase orders of $633,000 with a ESSER 3 balance of about $2.5 million. Our state and federal programs for the month, the total down there is $212,307 that I've received reimbursement for in our grants. And there's our fund balances for each of our each of our funds with a total cash balance of $9.2 million. And the last slide is kind of complimenting what Jody said about what Beth had done getting the grants. So those are the breakdown of the $207,000 that we had received. She had already gotten, it was $50,000 for the high school that we've put into place already. And those are what we're going to be receiving for the other schools. Spending it on the intercom systems and the radios to make sure that all of our school district or school buildings are communicating in case of an emergency. That's my report for the month, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have board discussion.
Well, public participation, but we didn't have anybody submit for public participation, but I need to remind our audience that we are doing an official business of the board. And unless you are speaking to the board through public participation, you should not be having any sidebar conversations or addressing the board out of turn. So that's part of our public participation with our board meeting, because we are doing official business. So I just want to thank you for that. Under board discussion, last board meeting, we talked about our track. We had some people not following our signs that are posted, and you had a month to maybe kind of think about what we could do differently to kind of combat some of the issues that we're having at our track. As I said, the last board meeting, it's not uncommon to have pets on the track or on the field, and they're not always picked up after. We've had other people with their strollers and bicycles and things of that nature. I don't want to get to a point where we're locking it down, but people are needing to respect our facility. We don't have the barricades like New Philadelphia does with their track, because they run 2 lanes and they barricade all the way around the last two lanes, lanes 7 and 8, so that's where people walk. And I'm not aware of any issues that they have with their track, with people not following the rules of that nature. I do enjoy our kids coming out there and seeing them running football patterns and things of that nature, because they're not abusing it. But we've had people out there with food and drink before. So I don't know if the board has any thoughts on how we help combat that. So we were talking about another sign right before you start walking onto the track that might say no pets, and have a dog with, the circle with through, and no strollers, no bicycles, no food. Our athletes adhere to their rules as far as, what size cleats they have to wear for track, and the Gatorade and things of that nature.
Do they enter through the turnaround?
Mostly they enter through the turnaround. I've seen kids and I've seen adults scale the fence to get in before too. So going and saying, hey, there's a turnstile, thank you for using that, versus climbing the
So
fence.
do we have a sign there at the turnstile?
There is a sign at the turnstile of the rules, yes.
What does our cameras, I mean, what can they see out on the field?
They direct.
Sorry.
The cameras direct through all the entrances. They don't direct on the field. So we have, I can see in the turnstile, the different, just really all of the perimeter. But once you're in, I mean, there's some, but I'm not going to be able to see at night, you out in the middle of the field, who you are. Maybe somebody, but not identifying who you are. We discussed putting lighting on the field. I did get one quote. I thought it was pretty high. So I'm kind of looking for maybe some other options. Then it would just be like the dusk to dawn lights. Doesn't really, we discussed, do we lock the turnstile at night, open it up the next morning? Haven't really, nobody said, what's the answer to that. We haven't had any vandalism per se. I think that, the food boxes on the field, I mean, it's just more evidence that things are happening there and, we're cleaning up after it, but whether it's animals or food, but I mean, you look at all the white lettering and everything on the field, if you're spilling pop or you're spilling Gatorade, there's a color on that, that's not going to come out. And, it's carpet. So it's just all of the things that chewing tobacco you find in there as well. And yeah, kind of what we've more been doing.
Just curious, what is the cost of the lighting? You said it came back high. What is
The lights,
$7,800.
it was like almost $7,500, and it was four lights off the press box. And so, I mean, we really felt that was high. And
So we discussed perhaps maybe putting it off of like
On the
the
other
build,
ends.
like the concession stand building or
Off
the
bus
tennis
garage.
or the bus garage.
I mean,
So we were going to look at that option.
And that amounts for how long?
That's to wire.
that's,
A while.
that's,
I mean,
that's,
that's just to put the lights up there.
Yes.
Then you have to pay
it
electric.
would just be,
Yeah.
times
the electric
by,
on it.
yeah,
Okay.
dust it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the press box isn't real conducive to, it doesn't have a drop ceiling in it. It's all, already it's prefabricated. So to add extra things on it after is and it's difficult. So that's why there's the extra cost. So we were looking at, well, do we maybe go on the ends, go off the bus garage, do some different things there. So I haven't gotten any prices yet on that.
Do you have a lot of people going in at night?
It's probably died down a little bit now because the weather isn't as good. I know when we had some really good weather there, we had a lot of traffic on Saturdays, Sundays, a lot of younger people going through. So the police, Eureka police, they've helped. They'll, if they see something, they'll address it. They've seen some kids, like he said, going over the fence. They've, stopped them and we have the turnstile open. So, but I don't know. We can put lots of signs up. Signs don't seem to help.
And I don't know, part of it is it the novelty of it being relatively new, as far as going out and having, their midnight snack. I mean, and they're out there at midnight, pizza and whatever. And it's just, getting that stroller through the turnstile to then set it back up and then start walking on the track with it. And the bicycles, I don't know how they get the bicycle through the turnstile, but
I think they go up over the gate, over the fence.
they may, I don't know. So those are just things that we just got to continue to try to work on and continue to try to stall. So the display sign, I think I put in my update regarding the sign that would used to be right there at Sunoco. As you were coming off 36, it was disrupting sight lines for people turning. So we just need to move it. I talked to Mr. Cottrell on Friday, and as he gave a couple ideas, so where it possibly could go. It needs a little bit of work right now, but once it's fixed, we want to put it back up.
I mean, you said that, I don't know coming off the exit if where it's getting in your sight where you can't see. I mean, it's been there and probably didn't even notice it coming into town. I mean, I checked, there was what, a Rotary sign there and a Carter Lumber sign there. Which Carter Lumber here in Twin Cities no longer. It's on what city, it is our property, but it is on the city property.
It's
So,
on city property.
so we move it, I mean, in your email, you said either at the high school or down at the stadium, which I noticed here in the north end in Denison on Second Street. I mean, I believe the same sign's there with the Rotary sign and that. I know it was rebuilt. Either my father and Coach Tokenen put them signs up, and it was built in Coach Chet's Peters' class.
Mr. Peters, Chet Peters said it's been up, he cut those out about 9 years ago. So the pieces on it, so.
So now it's mind-boggling. Now it's a problem that we can't see.
I need to ask the mayor as far as who told him who had to take it down.
You can't see over it. If we drop it down, I have a problem with removing it and putting it somewhere else because, yeah, I may drive by it forever and not look at it because I know it's there now, but the people coming into town, it's part of who we are. I'd hate to move it, but
Well, I looked,
accommodate the guy that can't see over because he can't pull forward enough to look.
I looked today, the Rotary has a sign out there at Macaulay Drive with the scrolling marquee. It's not operable right now, but it is off of the 250. But that's a spot, but it'd be hard to see. They're like no real good, and I don't know what is officially state and what's officially city. As far as putting that in down, if it's state, it would be right there at the on ramps and off ramps. But as far as where it was set previously, I'm only relaying what I've been told.
So did they take all the signs down that were there because they're obstructing
There's
view?
only one, and
There was only one, it was
welcome
ours.
to Yurtsville. That's the only one's left. There was as Mr. Cottrell said, there's a Carter Lumber. I did see a Rotary sign and an R sign.
So did they move the Rotary sign as well?
Yeah, it didn't make it through the tear down as well as ours did though.
Oh.
So right now, it's with the maintenance department doing some fixing up. But whether we put it out at the high school in our lawn as you come into the high school, or you put it as you come into the gym area.
Is this a song, like in Dennis, when you come in, it says the sports and what they have?
1981 champions.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, I guess my opinion would be, it'd be kind of cool to have it out by the high school, so, because some people they don't come that way. They'll come from north down. And we don't really have anything, I don't think, or maybe I drive by it so much, I just don't pay attention, which is terrible, but I don't think we really have anything out there accolading, the good anyway, so maybe.
The only thing we have out there is a display sign out front along the road, where it's like December.
Right, the date and
Yeah.
what you're doing, yeah, but, so I don't know. I guess if I were gonna move it, that's where I'd move it,
We got some time to chew on it then.
yeah.
On our agenda was a resolution to arm staff. I didn't know if we had any further questions. We just were ready to vote for it tonight. Making my update, I shared some of the things that were shared at our safety committee meeting. There were people on both sides.
Was there a majority either way?
No, it is just the people that were, some people said, I have no interest, but I'm glad somebody is. And if there were anybody that was saying, yeah, you got to do it, they didn't necessarily speak up. It was more of I'm glad somebody would be willing to do it.
I know that I asked several people in the community. I started asking when I was at ball games and different things. I started asking people, parents, staff, what they thought of it. And I'm not going to say exactly how many, but I didn't have any negativity. I did, if you consider negativity, the only negative I got was, I won't do it, but I'm glad somebody else is. None of my parents, and I would say I talked to at least 20 to 30 parents, and all the parents said, I would hope somebody is armed at the school my child's at. So that's what I'm hearing in the community. I did hear from people that had non-children, didn't have children, but maybe had grandchildren or something, and they all said the same thing. They said the timeline, safety of the rest of the staff that can act quickly, that was all. So everything was positive that I talked to. And I talked to some people at the food pantry and different people. They're trying to get a different kind of a feel for it out in the community.
I did receive an email today from the Ohio School Safety Center, and schools can at this point go into the safety center and submit their curriculum that they have gone through, and then they'll go under a 30-day review, and it'll come back whether they approve it or not. One of the curriculum that was used is one of that's already been approved. So our folks that have gone through that previously would be it would be an approved curriculum. It was just a matter of the 8 hours of recertification, and I had a crosswalks with it today with my emails. It's very detailed as far as what is to be done in initial training and to the 8 hours of training. So.
Mine was probably a little bit more like what you heard in me, because I also asked different people. And I probably got more of a 50-50 split on it. And I've been trying, and I mean, I've been saying, from every time we talk about it, I struggle with it. I struggle with getting behind it. I can see value in it, but then I can see risk in it as well. And there were people who thought, hey, I think it's great if there's somebody there, are they going to be in every building, all these things. And I'm like, that's voluntary only. And then I had some other people that said, the custodial staff and the cooks and the bus drivers and the teachers, that's not what they're supposed to do type thing. So I still struggle with it. And I just can't get there. So I've tried reading and I've done research on other districts that have had it, and I've seen some good things. I've seen some not so good things. So I just in fairness of full transparency, I'm not there.
We left off last meeting with you having our meeting with the safety committee on December 1st. What was their update, or how was the discussion with the safety committee?
Well, as I said a little bit earlier, some people said, I'm glad it's not me, but I'm glad there is somebody there. There were some questions regarding liability, and I said, I've discussed that with the school board, and and those participants know the liability that goes with it. So talked about the amount of training that goes with this process. So those were questions. And it was mentioned, they said, if you really want to listen to it, go back and if you weren't at the board meeting where Orvis Campbell spoke, go back and look at that and watch that one. And he was very eloquent in what he said regarding, whether you do or you don't approve it. But there was, I'd probably say 50-50, or from those that spoke, that not everybody spoke, and shared their opinions.
Is there any language in either of the contracts in regards to this?
No.
No.
This is a separate item for those.
Is it a policy? Do we have that in a policy?
There's a procedure, yes, that they have to follow.
I guess for me, I don't want to be a vote that holds back protection for our kids. Like, we all want the kids safe, and there is that high risk. But to do nothing, and having the support of the sheriff department, every chance or every second minute that it takes them to get out there is more bodies, I guess. And it's a flawed system probably throughout the districts, but you learn from unfortunately, each incident that happens, there's something to take away from each one of those. So maybe the next district becomes a little bit more aware of the situational stuff that's going on to lessen that. But I mean, I'm behind it. To have people there, there's just going to be risk and there's going to be injuries, and we'll manage it the best we can through it.
And for no one else, that's another discussion. I want to go to, just to kind of update you on, and in your board packet, I gave you 2 proposals from Heat. Beth and I have been working with our ESSER funds for facilities. And we are sitting now in January where we will be looking at going out to bid for our elementaries. So how much does it cost for our elementaries to work on, not all elementaries, but all of our buildings to revise their entrances? So that'll come out in January, February, we'll have an idea. But looking at the projected, at the last board meeting, I did a presentation about what we think that we have left over at this point, projected. So we're sitting around, I don't know, Kim, as far as, I know I asked you this morning.
2.5.
2.5. But that's with a couple outstanding things that we're not sure of where they're gonna fall.
Curriculum and entrances and a couple of things.
But I just want to put this on your radar. But we are meeting with a company, 2 more companies regarding chillers and whether we go out. Once we know, we will come keeping you updated. We're going to looking at our chillers for our buildings. The chiller across the street is at this point non-operable. And so there's no air conditioning. I know most of us sitting at the table probably went to school with open windows and fans. Not many students now aren't experiencing that. And it's just, I think the only local school district is up the road from us in New Philadelphia that doesn't have AC. But these proposals, and one of them, the one that says just flat out Heat on it, would be a proposal that they would say that we would have to go through, and they serviced out 3 different kinds of chiller units. And in those chiller units, they did an estimate per building. But on the second page on there, the primary school chiller, the lead time in getting a chiller is 45 weeks for that building. The elementary, 45 weeks. Intermediate school is over a year, 60. Middle school, 60 weeks. High school is 60 weeks to replace these. So if we would begin to move forward, once we have a grander picture of where we are, I say we're under an emergency situation. An emergency being that if we don't act now, it could be 75 weeks, it could be 100 weeks, and the prices still continue to go up. Right now, there's a projected increase on pricing at about 23% for new products coming out. The other one is from Johnson Lux, is the Equalis Group. That's a separate quote in that it goes through a consortium pricing. And by going through the consortium, as you can take a look at, and I'm just looking at the scroll chill cost. On the first one, it says Heat, it's at $1.479, $209,000. If you go through the consortium, it's $1.7 million. Based on our projects, I was estimating that we were probably going to be sitting around about 1.5. That's where I was kind of guesstimating, but that's just a guess, because we don't know it exactly. But
That's what you think we'll have left after we do renovations, after we buy curriculum?
when we sat down a month
Ballpark
ago,
guess. Okay.
and went through that and say, okay, curriculum's going to run us this, and this is what's going to run us here. And that was where we were guesstimating we were going to have, without knowing how those bids were going to come back for our entrances, yeah. And whether the curriculum has gone up or not.
And if we want to do these and we use ESSER 3 funds, those have to be spent,
September
September
24.
2024.
right? So, and it's spent, not encumbered by a PO, it's spent out the door.
Correct.
I'm just putting this on your radar. So we may come down to, obviously, if the intermediate doesn't have an operable chiller at the moment, then we're going to say, well, we need to go to emergency, get the intermediate 60 weeks lead time at this point to get that. And we need to spend $306,386. And then from there, Beth is working with our HVAC to take a look at run times and take a look at how much sediment and is in the oil within the chillers, and just kind of do an estimate about what's their workable condition. And then from there, we'll get a better idea. We would need to be taking a look at probably the high school as our second option. Just pure fact is that no window at the high school opens. They're all straight sealed. So if it comes down to they break down, and I think Kim sets a capital budget for Beth every year about $400,000. So right there's 1 year's capital budget at this time. So if we know in February where we are financially, and this would be an emergency situation because we don't get this on the books now, it's longer and longer away. And then that would basically spend our ESSER dollars. Well, it pretty much would spend our ESSER dollars because that's where we're sitting. So I'm just putting that on your radar.
So we're not giving it back.
No, we're finding ways to spend it.
Arguably will.
So, and as you look across the street, they're moved from Trenton Avenue to the intermediate to working on the brick. And where they are set up now, so if you go by in the daylight, you'll see the scaffolding. They got to the one window and said, we need a whole new I-beam above that, in that classroom. So we're estimating $75,000 for an I-beam for that area. That's just what we know now. So we don't know where we are going to be in the future. So, and we already know when I talked about the top tier of the building pulling in is because the roof is kind of shrinking. So when we get that new roof on, then it'll kind of straighten up our building a tad bit. But that's something else that we're experiencing. So I know that we're about 95% done at Trenton Avenue. So, but that's just giving you updates.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yep.
Any board addendums,
I didn't have any for this evening.
items to be pulled? Okay, treasury report, please.
Needing a first and a second motion to approve the financial report for November as presented, the payment of bills for November as presented. The minutes of the regular board meeting from November 21st. There was one then and now statement certificate that was in your packet. Approve the renewal of the financial reports dashboard through the SE Strategic Solution for the calendar year of 2023. And I did get a discounted amount on that one for one more year. So, and accept the donation from the Claymont Foundation of $38,629.38 for our teacher and building grant awards this year.
Make a motion, we approve the treasurer's report and recommendations.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Miles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, recommendation.
Okay. The first recommendation I have in front of you is to reinstate Army staff. We've just deliberated, so I just want to put that to a motion and a vote.
I'll make that motion. Roll call?
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Host,
No.
and Mrs. Wolf.
No.
The next items I have, excuse me, are, need a board approval, is to accept the resignation for Deborah Keithley, as she is retiring effective May 31st. That should be 2023. I see that correction there. Accept the resignation for Penny Dixon as bus driver and 2.5-hour cook at the intermediate. That'll be effective at the end of the day, next Tuesday on the 20th. And approve the calendar that we had presented for next school year. We have extended learning tutors, and also those sessions will run from the 18th of January through the 8th of April, and we're using ESSER funds for those. And we also have district work group committees. As far as work group committees would be for safety, Tammy McMillan and Bethany Doan. Approve the employment of Kyle Moss as a permanent sub at $15 an hour for the remainder of this school year. That'll be effective the 1st of January. Appointing Julie Pierce to fill the 7-year term for the library, and that'll start January 1st, and that'll go through December 31st, 2029. And approve Mustang Transportation at $50 a day through the Early Childhood Education Grant to transport a preschool student.
I make a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendations.
I'll second.
Both
No, don't matter. Roll call?
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
My last item that I had for payment for district work group would be for Veronica Cottrell under the safety committee. So I need a motion and a second for that.
Make a motion. I'll second it.
Roll call?
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Abstain.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
and Mr. Miles.
Yes.
And then going into the next items would be the board items, and that would be setting your organizational meeting and your next meeting, and also appointing a president pro tem.
I pulled up our athletic schedule that I had here. And I know Tuesday, the 10th of January, we have a varsity basketball game away at Newcomerstown. The Monday, or back to the 9th on Monday, that could possibly be a national championship game. Plus, just throwing that out there.
We have to have it before the 15th, right?
Yes.
That is full of, the night's full of athletics that night. Wednesday.
What's on the 12th?
We got middle school basketball away at Garraway. We got bowling against Canot Valley. Middle school girls basketball at home for just the 8th grade on the Thursday, and a Friday, just pop down and varsity basketball at home. Stuff like that.
Is the 10th just one thing?
The 10th, just one thing I believe that I saw. I mean, we can go back.
It's the
and look.
boys, varsity.
Yeah. We play Newcomerstown away on January.
And it's away, right?
Yeah.
What's the ninth?
The 9th is junior high basketball. Oh, that could be.
Yeah, the 9th is a bunch of freshmen. Well, Michelle, that would be you, right? Freshman,
Yes.
middle school, bowling, varsity
Thursday?
girls. And possibly,
No, Thursday would be good for me. Thursday the 12th would be good.
If we had it early, I don't like, Coy plays varsity, basketball, but if we had it early, isn't too long. of a
or do you
meeting.
want to go to Thursday, the 12th?
12th.
The 12th work for you, Lois?
Yeah, it's just a junior high game. I can miss Jackson's game.
We can go
he's-
early.
Or do you wanna
I
go
mean,
Well,
that's all right.
12th is
He-
good
he's-
for me.
He's got lots of ball games left. Coy doesn't have lots of ball games. I don't like to miss his.
I know we talked, Mr. Cottrell and I talked about doing the organizational meeting earlier, maybe going to executive session to discuss employment of personnel. And then coming out and then having our meeting later, normal, like starting early.
Yeah.
So I don't know what time everybody can get here.
What day is our board meeting?
I'm sorry.
Well, that's what you're
That's what
trying
we're
to
trying to
figure out.
figure out.
Trying to figure out.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if there was a,
It's not
At this
set
point,
for
you're wanting to
you.
know what's the earliest anybody can be here.
No, right.
No or yes?
I don't know. I mean, you
No,
know your
are you
schedule.
asking?
Yes.
You're asking?
Yes.
You're wanting to know.
I'm wanting to know.
Okay.
So if you say, hey, we could do, if we're trying to accommodate a basketball game
Yeah.
at junior high, hey, we could be here by 4:30.
I can be here at any time. As long as I get my calendar now, I can fix my schedule.
I'm good anytime earlier.
I can do 4:30.
So we have a January 12th, we'll do 4:30 as our organizational meeting, and then we'll follow our regular meeting the same night at 5 o'clock. Or,
Well, we would have to
Or you have
plan
to
to go
go
into
another day.
executive,
yeah,
right? So,
we have to have the organizational meeting by the 15th. We can go later into January for our regular meeting if we have to. So I don't know if you want to.
Oh, so as long as we have the organizational meeting on the 12th, we could have our regular board meeting on the 17th? Is that what you're
Could.
saying?
Mhm.
Like our normal board day and time?
Just
And the
have,
organization, we would just have the organization and then
have a
Usually we
regular
have
meeting
one
later.
Monday's not the 16th.
second Monday is really good, but
Right.
Second Monday would be the 9th.
why am I thinking it's Tuesday?
I don't know.
It's a Monday.
I've had a rough day. Monday should have been. Oh, so we would normally do the 9th.
Yeah, normally we would do the 9th,
Okay.
but that doesn't
I'm
fit
sorry.
right now with schedules. So if we had the organizational on the 12th and came back, and I don't see, I don't know, Aaron, did you look that far ahead of?
I didn't, I mean, I have the sporting events here and
Yeah.
What day you weren't looking at? The 23rd, there's this junior high game.
23rd. Monday.
16th to 23rd. 23rd, I do have the girls basketball
I'm on tape.
at home with Indian Valley.
the 16th, the 16th, the following week, the 16th is Martin Luther King Day, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
and the 23rd, we play Tusky Valley at home. It don't matter.
So what time does
high's
junior high
okay.
start on the 12th?
Huh?
What time does it start on the 12th?
On the 12th,
On the- There's no,
Usually
there's.
5.
we're
it's
fine.
5 o'clock at Garaway.
It's, fine. I can miss junior high game. I seriously can.
Would you guys rather do it one night?
Because he's got lots of games.
I would. I'd prefer.
Try to do it all one night.
yeah.
The 12th then, we'll.
Just
follow
do it
up
all
Can
on-
we just say immediately following,
Right.
or do we have to give it a time?
I'd say we need to at least give it time. I don't know. Our business is probably going to be 10
10
minutes.
minutes, so 4:45,
Yeah.
or do you want to break?
But if you have an executive session in organizational,
Oh, you're going to keep it, the I didn't know, okay. I thought you would open it
or
for
you do
regular.
executive session in regular.
Yeah.
It might be easier to do that
In
in
regular.
regular, so then you have it, because you have to have a start time for regular.
4:45 would be the regular meeting then?
I would say.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
So 4:30 on a Thursday, the 12th. And then 4:45.
Set my calendar. Right.
Yeah, we need a motion and a second
So I'll make a motion that our organizational meeting be January 12th, 2023 at 4:30 PM with the regular meeting immediately following approximately 4:45 PM.
I'll second. Roll call?
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
And then you need a motion and a second to open nominations for President Pro Tem.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
So this is the time where you guys nominate people for president.
I nominate Lois.
I'll second. Or do I gotta, you made the motion or we just?
No,
We just
we're
nominate.
you're nominating people now.
There being no other nominations, Steve can
Close
close
it.
it.
Go for roll call.
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Do I vote? Or no?
No.
Same.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Then you have to close the nominations, which technically we just did. So then you have to appoint Mrs. Grandison as president.
So I make a motion to appoint Lois as the president pro tem for the organizational meeting on January 12th, 2023.
I'll second. Roll call?
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison, and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
In the new business?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we enter into an agreement with OSBA for strategic planning.
I second that.
Roll call?
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion and a second to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
A second.
Time 6:13.
They're all welcome at 6:30 to join us down at the
Gazebo.
gazebo here in the village.